Most people, when they're about to face something hard, a difficult conversation, a high-stakes meeting, a moment that matters, they brace. You can see it. Shoulders up, jaw tight, a kind of full-body clench that says, "I am ready for this." Musashi thought that was exactly wrong. He said the strongest position you can hold is one that looks like no position at all. Not tense, not relaxed, present, unbothered. Able to move in any direction at once because you haven't committed yourself to any of them yet. That idea, what he laid out in the water scroll, is one of the stranger and more useful frameworks for navigating pressure that anyone has ever written down. It's not about combat. It's about what happens when you stop bracing and start flowing. If you haven't caught episode 1, here's the short version. Miyamoto Musashi was a 17th century Japanese swordsman who fought 61 duels and never lost. Late in his life, he walked into a cave and wrote down everything he'd learned. Not as a memoir, but as a manual. He called it the Book of Five Rings. Last episode, we covered the ground scroll, the foundation, the carpenter metaphor, the importance of reading your own material honestly before you pick up a weapon. The water scroll is the second layer, where ground is about how to think, water is about how to move, and more specifically, how to hold yourself so that thinking and moving aren't two separate steps with a gap between them. Musashi names this scroll water deliberately. He says his school of strategy, his entire approach to conflict and to life, should have the quality of water. Think about what water actually does. It takes the shape of whatever contains it without losing anything. Pour it in a bowl, it becomes the bowl. Put it in a narrow pipe, it accelerates. Give it no container at all and it spreads. It doesn't fight the shape it's given. It just moves. And under pressure, water doesn't brace. It finds the path through. It goes around what it can't go through. It wears down what it can't go around. It never panics, never freezes, never commits to a shape that doesn't serve the moment. Musashi wanted to operate like that. Not rigid, not limp, responsive. Present enough that the right move emerged naturally rather than being decided in advance. Here's why that matters off a battlefield. The people who handle pressure best in any domain, surgery, negotiation, elite sport, crisis management, don't look like they're trying harder than anyone else. They look almost unhurried. That's not because the situation is easy for them. It's because they've stopped bracing. They've stopped committing their body and mind to a response before the situation has finished showing them what it actually is. Musashi called it the water stance. He was describing a physical posture, but what he was really describing was a state of mind. Here's where the water scroll gets specific in a way that's easy to dismiss if you read it too quickly. Musashi spends a surprising amount of time on physical posture. The position of the face, the eyes, the shoulders, the grip on a weapon. And you might think, okay, that's sword stuff, not relevant. But stay with it, because the logic underneath it applies to pretty much everything. He says, the face should be neither cast down nor raised up, neither tilted nor twisted, calm, eyes settled, not darting, but taking in the full picture, not locked onto any single point. The shoulders should be down, relaxed, the spine upright, but not stiff. The whole body prepared to move without being mid-move already. What he's describing is the physical posture of someone who is actually paying attention versus someone who has already decided how this is going to go. The clenched jaw, the high shoulders, the eyes fixed on one spot. Those are all signs that someone has already committed to a version of what's happening before they've actually seen it clearly. You've been in rooms with both kinds of people. The person who walks into a hard meeting, already defensive, already braced, already locked in, and the person who walks in open, relaxed, watching. One of those people sees the room clearly. One of them is fighting with a picture they made up in the hallway. Musashi's argument is that the second person loses half the battle before it starts, just by posture. The other big idea in the water scroll is about strategy itself. Specifically, that real strategy has to be flexible in a way that most people are uncomfortable with. Musashi is suspicious of fixed plans, not because planning is bad, but because commitment to a single plan, refusing to read what's actually in front of you and adjust, is a form of blindness disguised as strength. He uses the image of a large versus a small body of water. A puddle looks contained, defined, still. The ocean looks like nothing in particular, no fixed shape, no sharp edges, no obvious strength. And yet the ocean will outlast everything that tries to contain it. He says, think big. Move with what you actually have. This isn't a call to be vague or uncommitted. He was one of the most decisive people who ever put a sword in his hand. What he's warning against is the kind of rigidity that mistakes a plan for a reality. Plans are maps. Reality is the terrain. And the terrain is always different from the map in at least a few places that matter. The person who says, but that's not how this was supposed to go, when a situation changes, and doubles down instead of adjusting, that person has already lost. Not because the plan was bad, because they confused the map with the terrain. Here's the thread connecting this to your actual life. Most of us aren't in duels, but most of us do face moments where the pressure is real and the margin for error is thin. Parenting a difficult situation, managing a team through a rough quarter, making a decision with incomplete information, having a conversation that's been sitting on the back burner too long. And in those moments, the instinct is to brace, to commit, to decide in advance how it's going to go and hold on. Musashi's counter-proposal is this. What if you came in like water instead? Present, responsive, not without a position, but not locked into one before you've seen what the moment actually asks for. That's not passivity. Water is patient and completely relentless. But it doesn't fight the shape of the thing it's moving through. It figures out the shape and uses it. The water scroll comes down to a single practice. Notice when you're bracing, when your shoulders go up, your thinking narrows, and you stop seeing the room clearly because you've already decided what's in it. That's the moment to remember the water. Take the shape of the situation. Stay responsive. The right move usually shows up when you've stopped trying to force it. Next time, we move into the fire scroll, where Musashi gets into the middle of the fight itself and explains why the most dangerous thing in any high-stakes moment isn't your opponent. It's your own momentum. If this has been worth your time, follow along. We'll see you in the next scroll.